Yo, what's going on, gamers? It's your boy Beardly here, and I'm not gonna lie, this video is gonna be very self-serving. Okay, like I am bragging a little bit, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. It's fine. But and again, I want to apologize. I didn't really make that many videos last week. I only made like one video last week, but my week was crazy, and it's because partially because my heat went out in my house, and so I've had people at my house fixing my heat all week, which it's back finally, which is cool. But also because I went on a little journey last week, a little bit of a journey, and it was well worth it. And it was for me, but I'm gonna say it was for you guys, so that way you guys will like, subscribe, and comment and all that stuff. To go get a brand new CRT television. And I know what you're thinking, well, Beardson, you already had one. It's like, yeah, and don't get me wrong, this thing was great. This little 22-inch Sanyo that I had with its mono speaker and only one video input, you know, I love it. It served me well, and I'm gonna keep it around, but we've upgraded, boys. Now I just got this Sony Trinitron, and I'm going to butcher this model number. I think it's a 32KSV120. And I had to drive an hour and a half to pick this thing up, an hour and a half to come home. This thing weighs 165 pounds. I literally threw my back out throwing this thing into the back of my car because, no offense to the guy that sold it to me, wasn't that much help. So it was kind of riding solo. And also I had to throw it, it wouldn't fit in the trunk of my car, so I had to throw it in the back of my convertible. I had to put the top down on my convertible and load it into the back seat. It was a nightmare, but it was worth it. Because this television, I think, is probably the best way to experience old school games. It's incredible. I love this thing. I'm in love with it. Not only the speakers sound great, it's got awesome video, speaker quality and outputs. If I wanted to add some bookshelf speakers, which I probably will later on down the road, to add some great high-end bookshelf speakers to this thing for the best premium audio output. But just, I mean, the picture on this thing is just incredible, and I love it. But this isn't a video that's going to be reviewing this specific TV by any means. I mean, I'm going to talk about it a little bit because I'm very happy with it, but mainly to talk about why I love playing retro games on a CRT television. And I'm not going to get into like technical jargon about scan lines or line count or, you know, CRT versus PVM, nothing like that. I don't care. I'm not that of much of an expert on these televisions to really even talk about them to that extent. But I just want to talk about like why I enjoy gaming on a CRT television in general. And it's more than just picture quality or audio quality, but you know, we'll get into that in a minute, because I mean, I will say the picture quality on this thing is incredible. And it's gonna be like this with a lot of CRTs, not just the Sony Trinitrons, but I mean, I probably would recommend the Trinitrons. I mean, they're pretty well known in the retro gaming space for a reason, and I get it now, because I fired up my SNES on this thing with an S-Video input, and I was like taken aback. I was like floored. I booted up Chrono Trigger because I remember Chrono Trigger being a very beautiful SNES game with like great pixel art. But I'd never really played it before. I played it as a kid on like the PS1 version, you know, which is like probably the worst way to play Chrono Trigger because of the load times and, you know, just everything. And I booted up Chrono Trigger, and I got so immersed not only in the game but just the way that the game looked that like I'm near the end of the game now. I'm just knocking out side quests, and I'm gonna go kill Lavos or whatever his name is. And I've had a great time playing the game. And partially the reason why I've had a great time playing the game is because it just looks amazing on this television. I mean, the camera, me recording the screen with an iPhone definitely is not doing it justice, but the colors just look vibrant, they pop, the sharpness of the CRT and the pixels, it looks incredible. Like I've never seen a Super Nintendo game just look this good. Not even on like an emulator on a high-end television does it really look this good, in my opinion. And I've played with emulators, and I've done the CRT filters on the emulators that try to emulate the effect of a CRT. And don't get me wrong, they're cool, and I'm not trying to knock people with emulators, but there's something completely different about playing it on the hardware. There's something about the motion and the way that the graphics move on the CRT. It just looks amazing, and I love it. And I've never had this much fun playing Super Nintendo games before. And not only Super Nintendo, though, too. I mean, PlayStation 2 games with the component inputs, they look almost next gen, in my opinion. I was taken aback by how good Dragon Quest VIII looked on this television. It really popped. And the reason why I fired up Dragon Quest VIII specifically was because this television, in particular, this model has a widescreen function. So you can actually play games in 16:9 if the game supports it, which this game does. And man, it looks awesome in 16:9. I don't know if it's because the image is shrunk down a little bit, because you do get the black bars at the top and the bottom with the 16:9 mode, which of course it's a 4:3 display. But I don't mind it because this is a 32-inch television anyways, and I'm already super up close to it. So I'm not really feel like I'm missing much. And I don't know what it is, but I felt like the colors and the motion and everything looked better. And I don't know if it's just because all of the processing power is going specifically towards the widescreen part, and it doesn't have to render nearly as much, or because it's just shrunken down. But man, the widescreen mode looks incredible. I think it looks more vibrant, and they look next gen. The games look next gen. I did this in Metal Gear Solid 2, and both of those games just looked incredible, in my opinion. They look next gen. I mean, to me, these are the way that these games are meant to be played. If you try to hook up a PS2 to a modern day television, it's just going to look like crap unless you have an upscaler of some kind, because these consoles obviously are not going to upscale to a 4K quality. And so essentially what you're doing is projecting a 480p image onto a 4K monitor, and it just looks terrible. It looks blurry and washed out. It's not the way that you should be experiencing these games. I think a CRT television, this is it. This is the best way to possibly play PS2 and below games. And I know a lot of people are big on emulators and stuff, and I'm not trying to knock emulators. I think emulators are great, and there's a lot of stuff that you can do with emulators that you can't do with the original hardware. Things you can do, the upscaling, you can add widescreen hacks and texture packs and things like that, and make the games look really good. But I think the reason why I don't like emulation, and I don't like downloading a bunch of ROMs and loading them up on a list, is because just the way that I like to consume media. And I'm very intentional. There's a reason why I love buying and collecting PS2 games, and there's a reason why I love buying physical movies. There's a reason why I love buying physical cartridges of things. It's about intention, and it's about the sort of ritualistic aspect of it that I feel like it's often overlooked when we're talking about retro games or just media in general. How many times have you guys booted up Netflix and you're just sitting there browsing for 30 minutes looking for something to watch? And sometimes I'll even spend more time just browsing than I will actually just sitting down and watching a movie, and it's time wasted. Whereas if I want to watch a movie, I just look at my shelf. Oh, I want to watch this. I pick it up. I put it in my Blu-ray player. I let the trailers and the FBI warnings play while I go in and grab my snacks and my popcorn and my drinks, and I get everything ready, and I get comfortable. I put on my jammy jams, and I sit down. I press play, and I watch that movie. And it's the same way that I like to experience retro games, because it's ritualistic. It's like an event. I don't feel like I'm just sort of killing time anymore. I feel like I am very intentionally playing this specific game, or I'm very intentionally watching this specific movie, and it's not some algorithm that told me or recommended this to me. It's not some sort of ad placement for the hot new, I don't know, Chris Pratt movie or, you know, whatever. I don't feel like I'm being sold anything, because I'm not. I chose to watch this, and I'm making it like a little bit of an event. And that's why I like the CRT, because like I have a television now and a viewing area and a playing area that is dedicated solely to playing these old games at what I think is the best quality imaginable, and it's very intentional when I play these games. I'm not, you know, now I'm granted, admittedly, I do have an EverDrive for the Super Nintendo, right? Because I'm not buying a copy of Chrono Trigger. It's a couple $100, okay? So sue me. If you want to send me one, I'd love it. I would love that so much. But you know, in the meantime, until I get famous enough for my fans to send me copies of free rare games, I'm not spending $200 on a copy of Chrono Trigger. It's just not happening, okay? So yeah, I did use a ROM list for that, but I did pick this game very specifically, and I try to keep the ROM list pretty short, because again, I'm very big on this act of like intentionality when playing games and stuff, because I feel like everything's just so disposable. You know, people will play a game for 30 minutes, move on to the next one, play a game for 10 minutes, move on to the next one, and it's like, I don't know, I want to experience these games, and I want to experience them the best way. So I think a CRT is really good for that too. And playing the games on the original hardware is really good for that. I feel like I'm not just trying to knock things off my back catalog to say that I played them, but I'm actually sitting down, experiencing the game the way that it was meant to be played, and enjoying myself, and making the most of my time, not just, you know, consuming slop just to kill time until I, you know, can consume the next slop or the next slop is released. But I'm playing this game because I want to play it, and I'm playing it the best way possible, the most vibrant colors, the best picture, and there's nothing more that I'd rather do, you know. So I think a CRT is really good for that aspect too. And there, you know, obviously there's like a nostalgia aspect to all this too, right? Like, okay, I'm 36. This is how I grew up playing games. So sure, there is like an aspect of nostalgia to this as well, obviously, because, you know, I mean, I'm big into like VHS tapes too. You know, I like the way that the VHS tapes play. I like the way that they look. I like that sort of aesthetic and that vibe. And CRTs definitely do add a certain level of aesthetic to the games that I think that the games were like designed for, right? I think that the graphics and the style of these games was sort of made in mind with the CRT aesthetic, but even removing this sort of nostalgia or aesthetic aspect of having a CRT, I love it. I love this TV. I love the way that it looks. I love the graphics. I love the visual quality, and I love this sort of ritualistic aspect of sitting down and playing a game on it. It's just everything that I want. Like, this is how I want to experience games forever, and I couldn't recommend it enough, you know. And if you can't get a CRT, if you live in like a dry area, which I get, like, you know, emulation is the next best bet. And I'm not trying to knock anybody that emulates or uses emulators, or maybe you just don't have room in your house or your apartment for one of these big, huge, heavy TVs. This thing weighs 165 pounds. I mean, again, I threw my back out trying to get this thing in, and now I don't even have like room for. I have to get another stand because I don't even have room for my Wii or my Sega Saturn on my stand anymore. You know, like, this thing is massive. Okay, these things do take up a lot of space, and if I ever move, dude, I'm hiring a mover, because I never want to have to pick up this TV ever again. You know, like, I just never want to do that. So, I get it. It's not easy, but if you have the space and you have the room for it and you're able to find one, I'd recommend a CRT all the way, 110%. I've never seen a PS2 game look better than this, or a Super Nintendo game look better than this. I've never had as much fun playing games on this television. You have zero input lag. You can play light gun games, which I plan on getting a light gun for my PS2 soon, so I can play games like Time Crisis, and get one for the Dreamcast so I can play like House of the Dead, which would be really fun because I love those games. You know, Point Blank, of course, and it's just awesome. I look at this thing and I'm just very happy that I have it. And this, you know, and the Sony Trinitrons are great. This probably isn't even like the best. I'm sure that there's people that know way more about CRTs that could be like, oh, actually this BBM is the best picture quality and blah blah blah, whatever. Yeah, cool, that's great. This thing does look amazing. Like, I love it. Like, I look at this thing and I'm just, you know, playing like SNES games and I'm wowed by the beauty of some of these scenes in Chrono Trigger, or I'm wowed by how gorgeous games like Dark Cloud 2 or Dragon Quest 8 or Final Fantasy 12 or, you know, any of these games look on the CRT. You know, there's definitely something that I can't explain, that I'm not smart enough to explain, where this sort of style of graphics and this style of television collide, and they just make magic, in my opinion. It is just magical, and the footage that I'm capturing with my iPhone just simply doesn't do it justice. My buddy, when he came over, you know, I was like, well, dude, you got to check this thing out. And so we sat around and I hooked up the PS2 with the component cables. I popped in Metal Gear Solid 2 and he's like, dude, this looks next gen. And he's not like he's not like a big gamer or a retro gamer or anything, but he's like, dude, this looks like a PS5 game, you know? He was impressed as like a total layman, and maybe I'm a layman too. But there's something about it. It's magic, and I couldn't recommend it enough. Even if it's something as like this, you know, 22-inch Sanyo that I have, I'd recommend getting a CRT. I think it's great. I think that you'll enjoy it, even if it's something small. It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't have to be top of the line. Just get a CRT and hook up your PS2 to it and your Super Nintendo to it and play it, man. I'm telling you, it's a magical experience if you've never experienced it before. And I think it'll change the way that you play games. And you'll feel like you're really taking advantage of the time that you have and making the most of the time that you have playing games, you know. So treat yourself. Get on Facebook Marketplace. That's where I found this one. You know, maybe you won't. Hopefully, you won't have to drive an hour and a half to go get it like I did, and maybe you won't throw your back out loading it up in the back of your convertible like I did. But you know, if you do, it's still worth it, in my opinion. I regret nothing. It's awesome. I love it, and I'm having a great time. So, thank you guys for watching the video. I know I said a whole lot of nothing, but I wanted to put a video out, and I wanted to talk about my TV because I love it, and it's great, and I'm very happy with it. So, anyways, like, subscribe, comment, watch all my videos. I'll love you guys, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye, 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 bye.